Off my video and I'll let you know. We are live.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone. First item on our agenda is I'm going to do a call to order. Quorum being present, this meeting of the Annapolis Historic Preservation Commission for March 9th, 2021 shall come to order. The commission operates pursuant to the land use article of the annotated code of the state of Maryland. Local authority for the commission is derived from municipal code of the city of Annapolis, chapter 21, section 56. The purpose of the HPC is to preserve sites, structures, districts of historic, cultural, archaeological, and architectural significance. Requirements for serving on the commission are detailed in chapter 21, section 8.06. The HPC operates pursuant to the State of Maryland Open Meetings Act, and therefore no pending application shall be discussed between or amongst commissioners outside the public hearing to determine the disposition of the application. All right. We have our commissioners present tonight. Bill Williams, Kim Finch. Hi, here, Kim. Bobby Collins.
Here.
Will Scott. Waves. I'm Tim Leahy. I'm the chair. Bobby Collins is our vice chair. Roberta Lehner is here as city staff, chief of historic preservation, along with John Tower, assistant chief here. From the Office of Law, we have Joelle Braithwaite. And we have there's Cheryl, there she is. Cheryl Wood. Our recorder is Ms. Tammy Hook. And Mark, now we're going to swear the people in. It looks like you've highlighted multiple people, which is great. The HPC is authorized to require the oath in order to testify, and this is done en masse. It includes applicants, staff, consultants, and members of the public who seek to enter their comments regarding any of the applications which will be heard at this public meeting. If you intend to testify, please rise, raise your right hand, and say, and I will ask, do you affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're given and the statements that you shall make are true to the best of your information and knowledge? Please respond by saying, I do.
I do.
Okay, unmute yourselves. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, next on our agenda is announcements.
This is Roberta. I would just like to announce that we have a change in the schedule. March 25th is on the schedule and has been for the HPC administrative meeting. However, that is a holiday for the city for Maryland Day. We normally don't have holidays on a Thursday, but this just slipped by us, and it is a city holiday that day. So we are trying to determine right now whether we need another slot or whether we're just going to cancel. In addition, March 25th was noted on our deadline for submitting public hearing applications. And so that is now going to be March 26th, the next day. These are being updated on the web. That's all I have.
Okay. Any other announcements? Nope. Okay. Any other announcements from the commissioners? Okay. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes from February 9th, 2021. I only had one thing. I think Jacqueline Gild's name might be spelled wrong. I looked at the city website, Tammy. That's on page 5. It's Line at the end. So I thought we'd get that right. Are there any other changes or corrections to the minutes?
Oh, you're right.
I'm sorry, I missed it. What was the
That's
change?
okay. You picked up Jacqueline Rouse's. That's the way Jackie spells her name. Okay. Can I have a motion for approving the minutes?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? All abstain. Okay. Very good. Next item on the agenda is new violations and status of any active violations. Roberta?
I don't have any information on violations. Our code enforcement officer has been off for the past week. John, do you have anything?
I have annoyances. Plenty, you know, a couple of projects started before approval, but people came in with applications and we're working it out, which I think is the best thing.
Okay. That's good. Thanks for doing that. All right, we'll move on. Consent docket, as I mentioned before, we're kind of past those with these three applications. So under old business, our first item is 61 Franklin Street. So that's Purple Cherry. Just so everyone knows, we've accepted new exhibits into the record, the revised staff report and revision 4 dated 2/19. So those were accepted. And I have another question to ask commissioners. Bill or Kim, you did not indicate before that you had done a site visit here. Have you done it since?
Not to both sites.
Okay, just 61 Franklin at this point. Okay. I just wanted to get that in. So you're our first one to talk about our process tonight. It's quite a bit unique, but what we did at our prior meeting before this was continued, we did accept your testimony and the staff testimony, but decided, of course, to continue. So what we're going to do tonight is Roberta has revised her staff report. So I'd like her to give that update. If we have all your testimony and your new information in the record, if you have any questions from the applicant for Roberta, you're free to speak and ask questions too. But we did not receive any public testimony on this. So the public testimony is closed. So we're basically going to just have a discussion with Roberta and the applicant, and then we're going to go into our deliberations. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, great. Oh, there you are.
So if anyone is following in the staff report, I'm just charging ahead to page 24, where I had staff recommendations the last time. And now those have been updated. And I really do want to thank the applicant for accommodating so many changes in order to meet the codes and standards and guidelines, because this has been a very large project. I want everyone to know there are 52 guidelines involved. So on page 24, I'm just going to run down the list of what has been changed since the last meeting. First of all, we asked that a further subordination of the roof would take place. And so it has been changed from, on the additions, that is, has been changed from copper to Freedom Gray, which has a copper base, but has a tin and zinc alloy on top. So it very much appears as the turn standing seam metal, which is no longer available. The second item was asking to reduce the mass and ornamentation of the chimneys of the additions, and that has been done as well. Those are now designed in a simpler manner and have running bond masonry and flush joints. The applicant also provided more information about the specs on the masonry. They also made another note on the drawings about the third floor egress sash that are to casements, but have a meeting rail to appear as double hung. We asked for more information on exterior units and mechanicals. They provided some information, but this is very common that at this point in an application, you wouldn't have too many details. So there is a condition for changes at the end. The next is new excavations. Again, those aren't entirely known. For example, maybe a new water line for sprinkler or whatever. Again, that's covered in the condition for changes. A lot more information on page 25. A lot more information was provided on the landscape, the tree protection measures. I was interested in how high the arrow hedge grows.
Big.
I've since found out that's 20 to 35 feet. So that line is as tall as a tree, but our urban forester reviewed it as a line of trees and was satisfied. The path lights have been removed on the front terrace. The planting list has been provided. The post caps specified. The pergola is at 9 feet 6 inches. And all of that was consistent. It was just primarily more information needed. Regarding the consulting architect, the applicant updated the siding on portions of the additions to make it consistent and moved one window. At some point in this discussion, you will want to call on them because they do wish to keep the panel system that they initially designed for the main addition that faces Franklin Street. You can view that as just a difference in design aesthetic between architects. Two items I think can move to the condition for exterior changes, and those are the plans reviewer, who really has not commented on the foundation drawings that were provided, or the stormwater grading permit application. I think, again, those can come under potential changes that we may end up reviewing. And we do have the final point about zoning, where the boundary survey was submitted and a setback analysis, and those were approved on March 2nd. I would just say that ultimately the commission should be aware that staff can't analyze two areas as consistent with the guidelines, and that one is removal of the two dormers, and those come under D11 and Secretary of the Interior Standards 2 and 10, and another one, D17. And also, we can't consider entirely consistent the moving of the leaded glass windows, which would be D16. Now, having said that, moving on to the last page, as I mentioned, we have 52 guidelines, and overall, staff does see enough areas consistent with the guidelines to recommend conditional approval. Now, one thing that might change here in that huge list of guidelines are included the ones I just mentioned that are not either entirely consistent or not consistent. There's only one that I considered just not consistent, and that was D11, the moving of the dormers. The others I mentioned I considered partially consistent. So you will have to decide whether you want those numbers in or out. But based on our review, John and I, I'm recommending three conditions. One is the standard conditions for repointing brickwork, and that is only if there's repointing needed on the original brickwork. And if that comes up, we would like to be able to approve it on site. And as you know, that is because we have so many problems with the quality of masonry repointing these days. The second is another typical condition, and that is for the archaeological monitoring. And then the last one is the key that picks up whatever is needed that might change. And I have written this so that we can review administratively changes that meet the administrative qualifications. And I just want to make that clear, because if something comes up that doesn't meet the administrative review qualifications, then it would have to go back to public hearing. So based on that information, I just want to see if John Tower wants to add anything to that before anyone asks questions.
Well, let me add this. Wow, very thorough list there, Roberta. I have to say, the applicants, the architects were responsive and really, I think, tried to meet the guidelines in the best way that they could, with a few small exceptions. So I'm looking forward to the commissioners deliberating on this.
Okay. All right. I'll give the applicant's architects an opportunity to just respond to Roberta, and particularly wouldn't be interested to hear your decision to retain the panel and trim component of the addition.
So first off, I would like to say thank you, Roberta and John Tower. You've been a huge help, kind of supporting us, constant communication and constant feedback, which is allowed to get us to where we are. So I sincerely appreciate your support and help through this, as well as the continuation, which has allowed us to be here today. So with regards to, I think, the three items you've identified, one of which is the dormers, which I believe that's a bigger challenge in itself, because that essentially where the second floor addition takes place is overlapping substantially one of them, and then we are adding the additional one. So the second item, I believe, was the replacement of the siding versus the panel trim on the second floor. I think we feel that keeping the panel trim is consistent within the neighborhood. We found several, while they're not immediately adjacent, several other houses within the area, immediate historic area, that have very similar context and feel, as well as we like the consistency of not adding too many different materials on the front facade, which we feel is actually drawing more attention to the addition. And I believe what is it, the third item? Oh, the lead window. Unfortunately, I understand that that is not something that is absolutely desired. I think what our approach is, one, it's allowing our floor plan and design to truly function. We know this has been a long, very frustrating path for our clients, simply for the fact that it's in very poor condition. And we're hoping with the removal, relocation of it, he's able to repair it, as well as I want to draw more attention to it by putting it on the front facade. While I know it's not truly historic, we do feel that this still is a very good approach, and to not completely removing or discarding of the window itself.
It's much. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think we can now move into deliberations. Commissioners, what thoughts do you have? And again, I think there's two things I'd like to guide us to, these 3 points that we just talked about and your feeling about them. And then if we feel like in the recommendations, we would like to remove certain guidelines that aren't fully compliant, we have the option to do that in Roberta's recommendation. So who would like to start?
Not everybody at once.
All right, Bobby.
Way to put me on the spot.
Right.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Roberta and to John, because with the amount of material that this application had and the amount of revisions and the amount of drawings, I never would have gotten through it if it were not through their wonderful staff report and their ability to really boil it down so that I knew what I needed to go in and read and look for and how I could follow the changes through. So thank you very much for all your hard work on this. I'm pretty good with this application. I mean, you know, since Tim, you kind of asked us to narrow down on these three issues. I understand the concerns and the Secretary of the Interior standards, specifically the dormer one. But given the way this project is set up, given the scope of it, and given what the architects are trying to achieve, I feel that these components, while they may not be preferable to us, they are necessary for the project to be successful. So I'm not sure whether we remove the dormer numbers. I think you said D11, D12, and D17.
Just D11,
and the
really.
Secretary of the Interior standards 2 and 10.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, whether we remove them from the compliance part of it or what, because there are other pieces of the project that are in compliance with those, pieces. So I'm not sure how it works when that's going on. I'm also fine. I wouldn't say I'm fine, but I also understand the leaded glass windows part. I love that component in older houses. I think it's a very important piece of their architecture and their history. But obviously for this project to work, they have to be moved. And, to me, as long as they're moved, they're in a place where they can shine, no pun intended, where they are carefully preserved and used again. I think that's the best scenario in this particular case. Don't really have any thoughts on the siding piece. I mean, I understand what they're trying to achieve, and I understand, the consulting architect's recommendation. Not being a person that's skilled in this area, I kind of am going to go with, what the architects in the group seem to think is the best option for all of this.
Okay.
So that's my 2 cents.
Good. Thank you. Kim, do you have anything you'd like to add? Kim, can you hear me? We'll come back to Kim. Bill
She is
Williams? Anything you'd like to add, Bill? You're still on mute. There we go.
I had a computer that works. As I'd have to agree in many ways with Bobby. The dormer is kind of the project. It's kind of what makes it. If I understand what you said, Bobby, as well.
Yeah.
They've gone through a lot of work to try to get it acceptable and still maintain their concept and the owner's needs and wants. Although that is not part of the requirements on our end, it is a consideration I think that is proper for us to take. I think it may well be possible to get some changes that would make it a little more acceptable. I'm just not sure what they would be offhand on that one. The leaded glass issue is, I could actually see it any place in the building, from the front, the back, the side. It's a component that is a piece of art, and in itself, I believe, should be generally visible. Where they have proposed it, I can't say I have any issues with that. And siding, as an aesthetic is also an opinion, I'm going to step away from that one right now.
Okay, great. Will, if you want to chime in. You're still on mute. Oops, you're on mute, Will.
And you're upside down.
We're gonna say anything.
There you go.
Oh, he has to take you off.
I
mute.
think Bobby and Bill have both made excellent points, especially Bill's about the leaded glass, and that very much addresses my concern. And I agree with what he said about considering a work of art that can be relocated on the building and still have integrity. I think that's what he meant, or at least that's the way I would like to express it. As for the siding, I don't consider that to be a concern of mine, nor the panel. The question about the design of that large panel. So it's only the dormer that remains as a concern of mine. And if that is not permitted by Roberta's interpretation, in this case, I'm going to say I would follow her analysis and recommendation on that point. But overall, I agree this applicant has worked diligently and worked well with the staff, and I commend them for that. And I think we ought to be able to resolve this evening.
Okay. I echo pretty much what everyone else has just said. And in terms of the paneling, that's a design decision. The relocation, it's so much better to relocate a historic window than to ignore it. And it does shine. So we're back to the dormer as the key issue. And I guess two things that I came down on was thinking about that, looking at the number of guidelines that this is compliant with and the scale of it, the sheer number of things that it is compliant with, we can say it is not fully compliant with that guideline, and the reversibility would be a challenge on the dormer. It is one feature on a very complicated building. So I'm comfortable with moving ahead to I would think we would just want to take that out of the recommendation because it makes the recommendation not quite completely technically accurate. I also thought that it was important to look at the context of a building like this on this particular street. If every house on the street was an absolute iconic, perfect house, and this was the only example of this particular feature, I would be more concerned. But this block is a bit of a jumble, honestly. Across the street, you've got new construction, you got the old medical office building, you've got a mix. So the integrity of the street isn't an iconic section, although some of the buildings are. So that also made me feel comfortable coming to the conclusion that this is approvable as submitted with the conditions. Okay. All right, I will close deliberations then. I'm hearing we're moving in the right direction. Kim, I'll give you one more chance to chime in. Okay.
She did send an email that she was having trouble with her microphone.
Oh,
So
okay. All right. Well, we're in good shape, I think. Okay, so I'll accept a motion, please.
I move that we give conditional.
Did I miss it? I think we didn't do the public hearing. Did I miss that? We just need to open it.
We closed it.
We actually closed it right at the beginning, Tammy.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it.
That's
Thanks.
okay. We got no additional public, so I reclosed it, I guess was the term.
Thank you.
Thank
Tim,
you.
do you want to clarify? Sorry, Tammy, go ahead, then I'll ask my question.
I'm good. I
Okay.
didn't have anything else.
You might want to clarify which guidelines come out before Bobby
Right,
begins so that she doesn't have to struggle with figuring that out.
right. We said she's not going to read them all. I think.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, yeah.
I think what I would remove, Bobby, is say except D11 and Secretary of the Interior guideline 1 and 10.
Okay. So I move that we conditionally approve the project at 61 Franklin Street with the guidelines mentioned in the staff report, the amended staff report dated the 2nd of March, with the removal of Secretary of the Interior Standards 1 and 10 and D11 removed. It comes with the following 3 conditions, which I will read so that they're in the record. Applicant shall provide a sample panel for any repointing of original brickwork and also arrange for a site visit as work commences to ensure the technique will match the color, texture, and tooling of the original mortar. Applicant shall coordinate architectural monitoring with the city's consulting archaeologist for any new excavations. And applicant shall submit an HPC revision form for administrative review of all future exterior changes to the building and property not specifically approved with this application. For changes not meeting the criterion for administrative review, applicant shall submit an HPC revision form for a public hearing review.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
We need to know that they're okay with those conditions.
Oh, thank you.
We're good.
We are, thank you.
You're good. All right, thank you for reminding me. Okay. We are seconded. Will seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstain? All right. Thank you. Again, I reiterate, thank you to the architects. This was a long project, and thanks for working through it. And I hope your clients appreciate your work, and it's going to be a beautiful house.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you all for your support and guidance through this process.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you too.
All right, have a wonderful evening.
You
Thank
too.
you. You too. All right. Next on our agenda is 9 Shipwright Street. So again, I'll repeat what the process, it's a rather unique process we're using, but I'd like, first of all, to state that there were no additional public comments. So I'm closing formally the public comment period. I'd like Roberta to give an update on her report. Then Jay, you can respond, comment, and then we'll go into deliberations. All right, Roberta.
Okay. Following the same sort of format.
Yeah, I think that's sensible.
Very well.
I'm going to page 17, where I initially had staff recommendations that have now been updated. And the first one was making adjustments to reduce the height and mass. And the applicant has responded by removing the rooftop deck for heating and air and relocating that equipment to ground level. And they clarified for me to mention that it will go under the porch steps, the side porch. The next item they provided was, I'm backing up a second. The new excavations, again, just like in the last application, those are still somewhat to be determined.
Sorry to interrupt real quick. Sorry, Will, could you mute yourself? We're here in the other meeting. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt, Roberta.
We asked for more information on the masonry. We got some information, and the rest again takes place under any future changes. The metal roofing, a lot of information was provided on the metal roofing, and we were satisfied with that. I should mention that there was some information about flat panels on a copper roof. That was just to understand the installation process, not the material. We asked for clarification on the discussion of contemporary materials. There will be none. There was some information provided on the landscape, and we appreciate that. As the landscape architect noted, this is just illustrative and is very likely to become more detailed and change And again, that can be reviewed administratively. They also provided more information on the spa pool and the outdoor fireplace, which they're not really part of the building, but they are exterior and they're kind of flow into the landscape. So I
Yeah.
put them under landscape. Plans reviewer requirement, same thing. We don't really have any comments at this point from the plans reviewer, and if there's a change, that is covered under our condition. Our applicant stated that he had met the requirements from his measurements, and we'll just get that confirmed, at the building permit stage. As we found out very close to the last meeting, there is no variance required. It does meet its setbacks. And again, the stormwater requirement, the grading permit can, if any changes to that, take place under our condition. I would also like to mention that I didn't ask for in this list, but I just want to mention that the applicant has stated under D2 that demolished materials will be donated, and that's admirable because there will be a lot of demolished materials in this. So again, the main issue at this point is the first one under staff comments, and that's reducing the height and mast. And the commissioners have to decide if they find that guidelines B1 and B3 are now consistent by removing the rooftop deck. I had mentioned at the last meeting, because there wasn't any deliberation, that the buildings immediately adjacent to the existing house are about 22 and 26 feet. The existing house is 2210, almost 23 feet. This is going to be taller and at the height limit. Our applicant will describe in a minute how he's justifying that by comparing it to the neighborhood. So the commissioners need to decide if they find that now consistent based on the change, which is a big change, that was provided. Also, the commissioners should be comfortable with the roof. You have the gambrel roof on the sides and then a large flat roof area at the top. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. So we had two guidelines that were not entirely consistent, but I called partially consistent, and that's B1, visual relationships between old and new, and B3, height and bulk. So
Okay.
then based on that, we recommended 3 conditions, the usual for masonry, the usual for archaeology, and then my more involved or descriptive statement of changes that can be reviewed either some administratively, some by public hearing, should the administrative requirements not be met.
Okay.
So hopefully that makes sense. And John, would you like to add anything?
Well, I have been concerned with the appearance of mass as one comes down the street. This is the first house with no setback after a fairly diminutive house. It sits 12 feet in front of that house. So its effect at the end of the street will be pronounced. However, almost every building at the end of the street is new, if not all of them being new. The other thing to consider is that I'm not sure there was any public comment on this.
No.
And
Oh.
that's important, because if the neighbors are comfortable with this, then that says something about how they're perceiving it. It's certainly been posted for a while, and they've had plenty of opportunity to speak about it. So while I'm not completely comfortable with this, and I think it's very important that we make sure that this does not create a precedent for demolition and replacement with a larger structure. I do think that it checks a lot of boxes and is a clever design. And I have to laud the Albrecht Schwartz team for being able to create something like that, right, such as they have in this space, because as I once heard a builder say, this is designed to fit on a gnat's ass.
Yeah, all right.
I
I think
just
that's
wanna add-
that's guideline Z72.
I just want to add something related to the comment about the neighbors. There, I might have mentioned this at the last meeting, but there was a point at which the sign didn't appear visible enough, and Mr. Schwartz kindly sent his staff dashing down to move it to a more visible location.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So no signs posted on gates that can be blown open by the wind.
Okay. All right.
And can we ask Roberta questions at this point?
Of course. And then with Jay an opportunity to respond. Sure.
Okay, Roberta, you're mentioning / commenting, in my interpretation, concern with the roof, the combination of the gambrel and the flat. Is it a concern, or is it just you're making note that this is a little bit unusual?
I'm making note that it's unusual because if you applied for approval for a building that only had a flat roof, we would have a big problem because this isn't a neighborhood of flat roofs. But it is in combination with the gambrel, which is going to be what is most noticed from the streetscape.
Right.
The drawing is such that the flat part of the roof isn't really very noticeable. But if you're standing up high on the high part of Shipwright Street,
Right.
you will see that.
Okay. I mean, I'm not being an architect, but I'm guessing that it was potentially so they could put the mechanicals and stuff up there, and have access to them. But if they change the roof design, then it might be taller.
No, I think Jay Mr. Schwartz can chime in, but I think it also had to do with head height in the bedrooms.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And just having the space, the whole total space needed.
Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Jay, would you like to comment, please?
Thanks so much for having us again. Almost spring. A couple of comments. I have to disagree with Miss Lana, Roberta. Sorry. The buildings on either side of this house have the building downstream has a 26-foot ridge height, and the building upstream has a 26 foot and 34-foot ridge height. If you look at, so we went out and we measured every house on the street and put together a streetscape. And so for height, again, the building downstream or to the east of it, which has that double gambrel on the street, that whatever that's called, that has a 26-foot ridge. We are at 32 feet, and the building upstream has a 34-foot ridge. So, and we also averaged all the houses, the 11 houses on the street, the residences on the street, and the average of the street is 31 feet 4 inches. So our proposal is 8 inches taller than the average on the entire street. And we can argue about, well, some are bigger and small, because they are. They're bigger and smaller up and down the street. I think the other thing that's important when we talk about the size of the house is that this is, of the 11 residences on the street, this is the second smallest footprint. So it is actually, if you look at the figure ground from 3 or 4 submissions ago, this is almost the smallest footprint of a house on the entire street. The only smaller house is at the very end by the pump station. So in terms of overall size, it is a small, the mass is smaller as in terms of footprint than all but one house. In terms of height, it's, it's above the average by 8 inches. So I get it that it's a different house, it's a bigger house in this location, but it is, in terms of footprint, smaller than each of the neighbors. Height, smaller than the right-hand neighbor, but taller than the left-hand neighbor. So I understand the concern. I understand the appearance. I can't quite agree with John that if, as you look up or down the street, the houses are going to block each other. There's only 1 or 2 places on the street that this becomes an important view, and that's looking down the street. So and that's really my comments on the height. I appreciate the concerns and the mass. I think in terms of the overall height, we did take off the mechanical equipment from the very top, and we tucked it under the stairs. So visually, it's almost not seen now, and got rid of the little widow's walk, whatever we wanted to call it, on the top. The flat roof, because it is such a small footprint, the owner wanted to squeeze as much living space as he could. And so we have limited floor to floors, and the flat roof in between the gambrels gave us that additional height. And the interior area, really. We'll still have mechanical rooms in the house, but the 2 condensers are outside. I think that's, I like that, pardon me, Nat's asked, because it's a tiny footprint. And it's gonna be interesting to build, but I appreciate all the comments and all the help from the commission, as well as from Roberta, you and John's assistance. And I can answer any questions.
Any questions? All right, we'll go into deliberation. And before we met, also Tammy put the revised application into the record, and the revised staff report, that is, and another revision 2 dated February 18th. Did Will, I think my records show you were the only one who hadn't visited this site. Did you have a chance to go there? Unmute. For the record.
Yeah, this 2 meetings at one time is not
not optimal. So,
but yes, I have seen the site.
Okay, great. So tell me, we can add that to the record. Okay, we'll go into deliberations then. I made Bobby go first last time, so I'll make Bill go first this time. Oh, Bill recused himself, sorry. Bing. Okay, Will, you're unmuted, so go.
Okay, I thank Jay for working with the staff. I think the changes that have been made have been very substantial. And I think that Nat's ass comment is spot on. I have no problem with the project as it exists today.
Okay. Bobby?
I would echo Will's comments. It's a sizable project. I think they've done a good job of trying to accommodate all of staff concerns. And at this point, especially after Jay's comments, reassuring me that the size compared to the neighborhood, because I'll be honest, I'm surprised I didn't get arrested for loitering. I spent so much time on that street, walking up and down and backward. If I could have gotten a boat and gone out on the water and seen it from the water side, I would have done it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've gotten to know that neighborhood really well.
Okay.
That was, and quite honestly, that was one of the things that I was looking at, was not just the house, not just the house and the houses on either side, but the entire street. And as you said, it is the the first house that doesn't have the setback when the street starts, you know, the houses come out that way and everything. I looked at everything, and between the changes that have been made, the good information that we've gotten here, and my time on the street, I am comfortable with the project at this point.
Okay, let's see if Kim.
May I suggest that the record does not refer to Bobby's time on the street?
Okay, definitely not.
My visit to the neighborhood.
There you go.
There you go.
I pretty much echo. I'm not sure, but I have three minor comments. One is there's one picture. I'm not sure you can see it, but coming down the street, it's not the height per se. It's that bulk that you're going to get is going to be different. And it may not be too high, but that's a relatively small. That's the one picture that struck me as, oh, this is a big impact. But again, the streetscape from there becomes completely jumbled and new. So it's a transition. So again, I don't think that's enough to make it non-compliant. Another thing that came up earlier, and we learned something, the demolition, quote unquote, demolition permit. I learned that that pertains to when you're demolishing a building and not replacing it with anything. So that's how that ended up.
We did submit an application though. Just
okay. Thank you.
Cross that T. Got that up.
Good. I'm going to confirm with John Manassa. He did not return, but that's what I understand.
Yeah.
I would like for the other commissioners to comment though, under B3, the code the code reflects the maximum allowable height. However, HPC may require a lower height based on specific site and proposed building. I raised this because it's not an issue on this particular application, but just because an applicant is allowed a height, we need to look at its particular site and building. So just keep that in your mind in the future if an application that fills the space, but it is in a place that it is blocking views or it doesn't comply with other things. We have to remember that. In other words, we have the authority to say you can't go to the maximum height by our guidelines. So I just thought that was something that you should remember. So that's all I have. I think this is from the point of view of the guidelines. I think we are in compliance with B1 and B3 in spirit, so I don't think we need to remove them.
Okay.
So.
And this one only had 31 guidelines. And we're very grateful for Mr. Swartz and his staff, Sarah, and also was it David or Michael that moved signs around, and he was also very involved. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
That brings deliberations to a close. I will take a motion. May I have a motion? I'm trying to get nicer. May I have a motion?
I move that we conditionally approve the project at 9 Shipwright Street because it is consistent with all the guidelines mentioned in the staff report. It does, however, come with 3 conditions, and they are as follows. The applicant shall provide a sample panel of masonry for brickwork at foundation, chimney, walks, and steps. The applicant shall coordinate archaeological monitoring with the city's consulting archaeologist for any new excavations. And the applicant shall submit an HPC revision form for administrative review of all future exterior changes to the building and property not specifically approved with this application. For changes not meeting the criterion for administrative review, applicant shall submit an HPC revision form for public review. Does the applicant agree to these 3 conditions?
I do. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstain? Okay. Should be fascinating.
Thanks so much.
We're going to take the demolition out over the creek?
No, that's beyond my, Thanks so much.
Cash the check and run.
That's Well, yeah. All right, see you.
Thanks, bye.
That's means and methods, not his problem.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. It will be actually interesting who see the contractor is on that. All right. Next on our
John
agenda
will
is,
step up.
sorry?
Maybe John will step up for that.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Next on our agenda is 79 Franklin. Looks like David is here, and Phil, looks like you made it. So Phil, did you hear my intro a few minutes ago to the other application, so you know how this is going to go?
I did not, Chairman Leahy, sorry.
So where we left it was we had opened and closed public testimony. There is no additional public testimony on this application, so again, it is closed. There are no new additional exhibits to be accepted into the record for tonight, because the application is the same as it was. In the other applications, Roberta made some comments because she needed to revise her staff report. But in this particular case, there's just the technicality that hung us up last time is the reason it's continued. So I'd just like Roberta to comment on the fact that she's received notification of the Board of Appeals. She did not have a chance to revise her staff report, but she'll explain that she probably will do that. You'll have a chance to respond if you require or need to, and then we'll go into deliberations, and then we'll vote.
Okay.
Roberta, you can update us on what information you have received regarding the Board of Appeals and any other details you'd like to convey.
On this one, I don't have much to say,
Right.
except that I did get notification that all the approvals related to zoning were met at the Board of Appeals. And so therefore we can go ahead with the conditions that I was recommending. And so therefore we don't have to use the first condition, which was requiring meeting the requirements for special exception and variance, certificate of use, building. It will have to meet the building permit. So anyway, that first condition can go away.
Right. Okay.
And then the same applies for any future changes that will be reviewed at public hearing if necessary. And then we had already mentioned a long time ago for the applicant to retain and store on site the framing and any other materials related for the new door opening. That's all.
Okay. That's Phil or
Mr. Chair, no
Stacy?
need for a response. I think we dotted the i's and crossed the t's, and we indicated last time that we were accepting of the remaining conditions. We would have been accepting of the first one, obviously, but we're accepting of all those that remain.
Okay. Yep. That was my main point, just to get on the record that first condition is no longer in the staff report. I wanted to get that in the record. All right. I don't think I need to worry about site visits. Bill or Kim, I'm not sure you did a site visit to this, but if you did, let me know.
I've been there.
Okay, great. All right, I will open deliberations. Any comments from commissioners? Okay. I think we're all on the same page on this one. I will take a motion and we'll vote.
I move that we accept or that we give conditional approval to the application for 79 Franklin Street because it meets with the guidelines and Secretary of Interior standards mentioned in the staff report. It has two conditions. The first, the applicant shall submit an HPC revision form for public hearing review and approval of all exterior changes not specifically approved in this application or meeting the criterion for HPC administrative review guidelines. And as mentioned, and they already agreed to, the applicant shall retain and store on site framing removed for the new door opening.
Great.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstain. Okay. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Well, we all learned
Bye-bye.
something about calendars and schedules on this one.
I have deterred 2 architects from trying to go through the procedure in that other way. So hopefully we'll prevent, hitting the same other ships from wrecking on the same rocks. But, thank you again. Appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
You have to know something about one of the photographs in there. You'll see the mobiles on the front porch, all the Mickey Mouse mobiles that were on the front of this porch. If you look real closely and blow it up. So if you don't know, Stacy, this was known as the Mickey House.
My children will love that. So that's
right.
good.
You have to really zoom in. You can't quite see them on the photograph, but yeah, it was full of mobiles and spinners and stuff. It was really cool.
I promise I won't have those. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh no, they're fine. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay. We have 3 other things I want to bring up. Under other business, I sent out some wording regarding umbrellas on Main Street to enable outdoor cafes to have specific allowance for umbrellas. And I sent the wording out pretty late, this afternoon. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, do take a look at it. I added something based on our last conversation as I wrote it that I wouldn't mind some input on, and that had to do with a uniform color and design for an application. Do we want to say we don't want, random an application have a bunch of random colors and designs? I thought we would want that. But if take a look at it, let me know. We can implement this once I get your feedback and give it to talk to Sally, and she can then begin the process in the spring where we're going to have, well, it's going to be better than it was. We're going to have a lot of more controversy over clutter on Main Street, I think, with outdoor cafes. We certainly support the merchants and we want to help them, but we want to stay within boundaries, I believe.
Did you see the governor's ruling today? That he's back to 100%?
But counties and
Yeah.
and
Restaurants.
municipalities and counties don't have to follow that.
I know, and we may not, but he's at least put that marker down.
Yeah.
Whether it turns out to be a good thing or a bad thing, we'll see, but I was surprised, to put it
Me too.
mildly.
Well,
He did say masks are still required, so
Yeah.
thank goodness for that much.
We're not Texas.
not yet. So when does that go into effect?
Friday.
Friday, yeah.
He's
All
got a
right.
fine line he's trying to walk between running with a Republican base for a higher office and doing what's best.
Yep, you know it. I agree. It's a fine line. Also, you all saw, I think you all got a monthly email from Hillary, which was something new to all boards and commissions. So take that under advisement. And Bobby has gone to the Open Meetings Act training. She got a certificate. So if you have time, please do that. I think we are pretty compliant. I think we've gotten good training all along, but it's always useful, I think, to do a refresher. That's all I had under other business. Under administrative business, we had administrative approvals that were issued from October to December 2020 that we accept into the record. That's not something we vote on, but take a look at it. How many were there, Roberta? I didn't even count.
I thought about counting, but I was too busy counting guidelines just before the meeting.
That's great. Yeah, and again, we should all know that more than 80% of applications from applicants and citizens, property owners, are processed administratively, and that's a testimony to all the work that is done. Okay.
Tammy, I'm looking at an email from Kim. She visited all 3 sites for tonight, so I don't know if that.
Thank you.
The record.
Thank you for that, Bobby. Bobby's keeping track. You can multitask. You must have multiple screens, Bobby. All right, and Will's managed to juggle 2 meetings at once. That's a new one. All right. Any other business?
No.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for your hard work on these. We learned a lot, I think, in this process.
Yes.
So, all right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, meeting is adjourned. Thanks very much, everyone.
Right.
Have a
Bye.
good
Good night.